Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you are subscribed to the Substack DaftOnDraft.football, where you will get access to all of these charts on Google Drive for every quarterback in the class, access to insider information on the Discord channel, film rooms every single week, live chartings every single week, big boards, positional rankings, more and more. So make sure you are tuned in. Welcome back into another episode of the Daft on Draft podcast. James and Corey here, and we are here to talk about the national championship. Monday night, we've got Miami, Indiana, capping off the last college football game of the season. Obviously, there are some storylines here about Miami returning home and Fernando Mendoza returning home. So there's storylines on both sides of this thing, with this game being played in Miami. Should be a home game for the Hurricanes here for sure, in terms of fan support. But I'm really looking forward to it. If you would have told me 2 years ago that Indiana would be playing for a national championship, I would be like, it's time to turn off the Xbox. But here we are with Indiana playing for a national championship in football. But James, let's talk about it.
I would have said, man, our Model UN team is really kicking into gear.
I love it. I love it. So first off, let's start Miami offense versus Indiana defense here. Some key matchups to watch, kind of what to keep an eye on here. What I want to shout out first is how potent Indiana's interior defensive line has kind of been without really a headliner. I mean, next year we'll talk about Mario Landino quite a bit, but without a real headliner up there, Tyreek Tucker, Mario Landino, those guys are causing real havoc against every team they've played. Now, this is the best offensive line they have played.
Mhm.
So we'll see how that stands out. We've got, Markel Bell at left tackle. We've got CeCe Moinoa at right tackle, Inez Cooper at right guard, Brockermeyer at center. So this is a good unit up front for Miami as well. But I'm excited to see this trench warfare, if you will.
Yeah, I have draftable grades on 4 out of the 5 Miami offensive linemen. Brockermeyer, the center, I think is a strong priority free agent. And then the left guard, who I don't want to butcher his name, I expect to return to school. But going back through, and I'm fully caught up on Miami tape this week, and man, their offensive line is impressive. Starting with the run game, I just find it so amazing how automatic their left guard is at getting like at least 3 yards of displacement pretty much every time they run duo. It's the downhill rushing attack is extremely potent, and I think specifically running off of that left side, like Markel Bell is kind of funny as a run blocker. He has no way of getting any leverage at the point of attack, but on those double teams, it's really just the left guard kind of getting that initial push, and then you just need Markel Bell to lean on him, and the entire front collapses. What I'm really interested to watch, though, is how this running game adapts to the way that Indiana defends the run with so many gap exchanges and twists. It's not necessarily the kind of thing where it's just like power at the point of attack that you need. And I think Inez Cooper, who I was pleasantly very surprised with his tape, especially in pass pro, had the exact opposite feelings about him in the run game. I feel like there are so many reps where he either doesn't know the play call, or it's weird because he doesn't lack physicality in pass pro. There are sometimes where he can line up a target and just absolutely annihilate them, but he'll meet a puller and then just kind of watch them run by him and make the tackle. So I was really disappointed with that phase of his game, and I think that could be a matchup advantage for Indiana. But yeah, up front, it should be a battle.
Yeah, really looking forward to again, Michael Kamara is the 2026 guy along that Indiana defensive line. But as we've talked about on this podcast throughout the year, how high he's going to get drafted is not super high. But he's been productive down the stretch. I wouldn't say the tape has been overwhelmingly positive, but he has been productive. So he's the 2026 guy to keep an eye on up there. Second level, we're talking about Isaiah Jones, and we're talking about Aiden Fisher. Jones going to go back to school. Fisher out of eligibility. We talked last week, or it might have been earlier this week, about how pleasantly surprised I was by Fisher's tape, and what I expected him to be versus what he turned out to be, and a big test in this one because Mark Fletcher has been running through everybody's faces through the college football playoffs. So his face is next in line, and we'll see how that kind of plays out here moving forward there as well. What else from the Indiana defense and Miami offense is standing out to you right now?
Carson Beck's kind of like simultaneous evolution and degradation over the course of his career, where it's like the arm has just nosedived, and at a certain extent this year, like the way that he has elevated his game in terms of protecting the football is why Miami's here right now. Um, I'm fascinated to see how Carson Beck performs, because he is somebody that just doesn't have the switch in his brain to really recognize that a window is too tight, or his receiver is about to get put into the blue tent by a safety. And Indiana is one of the most coverage, rotation, and disguise heavy defenses in college football. So I think it could be like a 3-pick game. I could definitely see that. But the way Carson Beck has been playing, it's super efficient football, just taking what the defense is giving him. You watch him and feel like he plays really well, and then you look at the stats and he's got like 150 yards or something. And so I could see that, just a really efficient, like, manage the game type of performance as well.
Yeah, I think what this game is going to come down to is, can they get Indiana, or can Indiana get Miami into consistent 2nd and 8s, 3rd and 6 pluses where Miami is forced to kind of put the ball in Carson Beck's hands, because that's what Ohio State couldn't do. Carson Beck was consistently sitting in 2nd and 3s, 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 3s, 2nd and 4s, to the point where, like, all he had to do was throw blaze outs. All he had to do was get the ball out of his hands as quick as possible. And that was the death of Ohio State. So winning those early downs is going to be key. But we've talked about the guys up front in the trenches for Indiana. So again, we've talked ad nauseum about the trench warfare there. But Miami's got some older receivers who are starting to produce down the stretch here too. And then you throw in Malachi Tony as well, who's not 2026 eligible or even 2027 eligible, but he's the best of the bunch. So they've got their hands full in this one as well. I would imagine, because this is what they did against Ohio State, even though Ohio State's primary receiver had 6 inches on him, is they had D'Angelo Pons follow their best receiver. I'm curious to see. Tony plays a lot of Z and plays a lot of slot. I'm going to be interested to see if they leave Pons out on the boundary, or if they start to maybe have him follow Tony in this game.
Yeah, Miami has a lot of weapons where they can still burn you if you take away their number one option. I mean, Keelan Marion, who is a recruiting class of 2019 guy, so a really old prospect. But he kind of had a breakout performance in the last game. Going back through his tape, he is pretty fast, but really struggles with physical press coverage. I think he got just blanketed every time he ran a dig route. It was kind of wild to watch, just the inability to separate on end breakers. But he can take the top off, and had some big plays last week. And then CJ Daniels, really strong start to the season, got injured. He's I think got 1 week under his belt back from the injury. So yeah, I don't think it's the kind of thing where you just like it with Tony. It's hard to take him away because of how versatile his alignment and usage is. But yeah, I would say that they probably just play their standard like coverage scheme.
Yeah, because I was probably underselling Boykin's talent as well, to kind of
Right.
follow whoever is in the Z or in the slot or stacked or whatever there as well. So, but yeah, both those Miami receivers are very well traveled. Marion is, UConn to BYU to Miami, and Daniels is Liberty to LSU to Miami. So very well traveled receivers there. A lot of college football played by those two guys. To keep an eye out in that one. D'Angelo Pons is obviously the player in the secondary to watch. Amari Farrell, safety, going back to school. Leonard Moore, not Leonard Moore.
Lewis Moore.
Leonard Moore's the corner from
The Notre Dame corner. Yeah.
Yeah. Lewis Moore, the safety, Boykin, both older guys who will declare, and they're both draftable players as well. So this is a pretty seasoned, a pretty talented, well-coached secondary. Again, we talked about breaking down the Oregon Indiana tape, that like those sacks where it felt like Dante Moore was holding the ball forever. You watched the sideline angle. and like there's literally nobody open. They rotate so well, they disguise
Yeah.
so well, and Will Stein could not scheme anybody open against that secondary last week. So going to be really, really interesting to see how the chess match that Shannon Dawson has up his sleeve for this game too. I think this is going to be a freaking slugfest, dude. I know there's some people saying that like, oh, I think Indiana could win by 3 scores. Like to me, I think that like this is going to be like a heavyweight fight, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. Obviously, the last 2 games from Indiana have exceeded my expectations,
Mhm.
just in terms of how much better they looked than their opponent. So, there's a part of my brain that acknowledges it could be one of those games again. But when I look at this matchup on paper, I mean, it's the best defensive front and offensive front that Indiana's faced. So, like,
Mhm.
we'll get into the other side of the ball, but if you can get Indiana out of the RPO game, and they haven't been down 2 scores one time this year.
Mhm.
So I'm confident that Fernando Mendoza can drop back, but like the right side of the offensive line, when you've got Akeem Mesidor and Ruben Bain with, I
Mhm.
mean, just pinning their ears back, that does make me nervous for sure. Defensively for Indiana, I think in the secondary, the one relative weak link would be Jamari Sharp, cornerback 2. He's played better over the second half of the year, but has had some rough moments.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana on FanDuel, I think the spread is way too wide. Indiana's 8.5-point favorites in this game.
Yeah.
That feels heavy. That feels like a 2-score game feels heavy. Because again, we haven't even talked about guys like David Blair or Amon Moten along the interior as well. I don't know if Moten's healthy enough to play in this game.
Blaze coming off of a pretty
A
brutal
bad game.
performance,
Yeah,
but
he is.
yeah,
But again, the right guard it has been susceptible to power straight through the
yeah.
chest as well for Indiana. So
He's been
we didn't
susceptible to
even.
a lot. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can beat him with speed and power. Yeah, he's
yeah.
it's Khalil Benson and Bray Lynch, right tackle and right guard. I I have 29 players in this game with a grade, and Khalil Benson is my lowest graded player.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, that's definitely advantage Miami.
Mhm. Okay, so let's flip the script here. Let's move on. Talk about Indiana offense, Miami defense. Where do you want to start this conversation?
So we kind of talked about the pass rush. I think going to the other side of the offensive line, Carter Smith, obviously a much better prospect than Khalil Benson, but doesn't project as an NFL tackle. And you see that like in his matchup with Kenyatta Jackson Jr. And he has incredibly high pass blocking grades and like low pressure numbers this year. If you look at PFF, and then when you watch his tape and you watch his pass blocking snaps, count how many of those he's run blocking because it's an RPO that gets
Mhm.
charted as a pass blocking snap that he didn't give up pressure. He is like very good, but it's not a lot of island reps,
Yep.
against pass rushers of this caliber. And so, if he has a great performance, I don't think it's going to make teams like change him to a tackle on their board, but it could push him to potentially declare for the draft if he gets some true one-on-one reps and shows out. But could also be an Austin Searveld type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking heavy about Searveld too, leading up to that Miami game.
Right.
Like this guy is a really stout guard prospect. He's got a really heavy hands. His base is firm. We like his feet. His technique is great. And then Ruben Bain completely crossed his face and threw him for a loop. And I mean, he got hurt 15 plays into that game. But Searveld's back at school. I'm hoping they transfer into tackle. We're hitting the twilight zone of the transfer portal, though, so that doesn't look
Ru-
likely at this point. But
Ruben Bain single-handedly pushing these guys to finish their degree.
yes,
You
yes,
love to see somebody supporting education in today's landscape.
yes, indeed. So, again, if Carter Smith does declare, I don't think I would have him in that like Besantis Pregnon tier. Maybe I would. I don't know, but probably the tier right below that.
I've got him as a center, but I think as a guard, he would probably be. So I have it as the Vega. I don't actually. I think it's kind of 3 tiers. I think I
Okay.
would say like Vega, Pregnon, and then Besantis are comfortably like I feel like there's a comfortable gap between them, and I think Carter Smith would slot in how I have them graded now would slot in right behind Besantis in the same tier. I think
Okay.
he moves his feet a lot better, plays with outstanding leverage. Pad level is just
Hmm.
textbook. Like I'm sure that they're like when they're recruiting offensive linemen to Indiana, they're pulling up Carter Smith's tape and they're saying like, look at this guy. He has no traits basically, but he's just an outstanding tackle because he stays centered to every block and he's so
Hmm.
technically sound. Like that's got to be your recruiting pitch. So do like there's a lot to appreciate about his game for sure.
Yeah, and he needs to stay frame to frame in this one because again, we've been talking about Bane a lot, but I think Akeem Mesidor is very good at forcing tackles to overset and then crossing their face. So
Oh yeah.
staying frame to frame, and again, spacing issues aren't really prevalent on Indiana's offensive line's tape. With Benson, it's just getting completely cooked around his outside shoulder over and over again. But um, especially the left side, I don't see any massive spacing issues. So I don't know if that's going to be to Mesidor's skill set. I actually think this is a matchup that Mesidor might struggle with because of the lack of outside shoulder wins or through the chest wins on his tape, despite his size and I think perceived explosiveness as well. Um, so that's something that I'll be keeping a close eye on too in this one.
The most common move that he has won with this year is an inside move with
Mhm.
18 wins. He's got 17 wins with a two-hand swipe. Only 19.1% of his wins have been with power, and he's let's see, 6'2", 273 pounds. You would expect that's like a leverage monster, and he is explosive for his size. I think
Yeah.
that's the one reason that I can't get fully on board with uh, Akeem Mesidor as like a potential first round pick. I still think
Mhm.
he's a really solid prospect, but I mean it's a guy who's going to be 26 as a rookie that like
Yeah.
can't run through the chest of most college tackles. It is a little bit concerning projecting to the NFL.
Agreed. Agreed. Moving the conversation now to the phrase of the football field here. We're going to talk about Keontae Scott, who's been instinctual and who has been a playmaker for Indiana's defense. And then obviously there's three good Indiana wide receivers, and we've raved about Charlie Becker, and we kind of have to press pause or put a bookmark on that one until the summer. But there's Omar Cooper in the slot, who's Scott's going to see a lot of in this one, and then there is Surratt, who I just continue to think is just like he's gotten so good at the little things because he's had to get so good at the little things. So I'm excited to see how that plays out along the boundary in this one as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they match up. They have their corner number 6 is going to miss the first half of the game with a targeting call, if I'm not mistaken. So that'll
Mhm.
be big. But yeah, for Mendoza, really what I'm looking for is just like it, it's not going to change his grade or change where he stacks up in this class. That's pretty much solidified. But the more like translatable reps you can get of him with like in true drop back situations, the better. But yeah, what do you think? Have you revised your earlier in the year? We said Cooper over Surratt pretty comfortably. Have you revised that at all?
I still think it's Cooper over Surratt. Right now, let's see where I'm at. Cooper's at 47, Surratt's at 50. I mean, so it's right there. But yeah, Cooper. I just think the lack of athletic traits is really going to catch up to Surratt at
Mhm.
the NFL level. But again, like the comp that I mentioned earlier this week that I've been working with is James Jones, and those guys who become quarterbacks' best friends and know how to throw their hands as late as possible and know how to work the scramble drill and do all those things well, they find roles at the NFL level. So, um, but I do like the physical traits of Cooper much more, the explosiveness of Cooper, his ability to separate more naturally.
Yeah, I've got Surratt 95, Cooper 57. I'm really interested to see where Surratt ends up going because there's a pretty wide split in where he's ranked on the consensus board. Like there's people that have him uh top 40, pushing the first round.
Hmm.
It only takes one team, and especially if he has a repeat of the the last game at the catch point, like if he puts up another game with like three for three uncontested catches, I think that could push some teams to draft him a lot earlier. At the same time, I mean, the inability to stack anyone or like really separate from press man,
Hmm.
I would feel a lot more comfortable with him as like back into the third round type of pick.
I agree. That's exactly how I feel about Surratt. And again, I have 86 players on my board as I'm continuing to fill it out here, so I'm sure both those guys
Right.
will get
Yeah.
pushed a little bit. All right. Anything else sticking out from the Indiana offense versus Miami defense before we spend some time talking about the obvious one in Fernando Mendoza?
Riley Nowakowski, we've talked a little bit about, kind of a classic Indiana prospect. You got to start, like, doesn't have the measurables, obviously, but I mean, just competes his ass off as a run blocker. So more of a guy that I enjoy watching than like somebody that I'm banging the table for as like an early draft pick. But day 3 fullback, I could see him being a guy
I
that
was gonna
sticks.
say 6'2", 250, baby. Put that guy in
Yeah,
the backfield and
yeah,
let him clear some reins. Yeah.
there's like 4 or 5 teams that are going to be seriously considering him, but I bet he's gets a second contract.
Oh yeah, him and the Oklahoma kid, Kanik, are the two. It's like fullback,
Okay, I need to
fullback.
watch him.
So yeah.
Have you watched the Oklahoma linebacker Kendall Daniels? This is a sidebar, but
No.
I saw somebody say he was like Sonny Styles light,
I've heard
and
he's
there's
really
there's a
explosive,
lot of hype, so I'm
but
excited to check him out.
I've been told he's really explosive, but yeah, I haven't spent any time. He didn't have draftable grades over the summer, so I haven't really tuned in. I wrote
Yeah.
up 16 linebackers last week for my positional rankings, and he wasn't one of them. So I still probably have 8 more to write up there. But all right, let's talk a little bit about Fernando Mendoza. I think overall we're running out of things to talk about. One, because Ty Simpson's body turned into ash at the end of the season, and 2, Dante Moore has gone back to school. So there is no competition for QB1 in this class anymore. Like, he's gonna go first overall. If the Raiders don't like him, they'll get a haul. If the Raiders like him, they'll pick him. It's like it's that simple. There are
Yeah.
so many quarterback needy teams on the open market or the trade market. We can talk about Malik Willis, Kyler Murray, maybe Mac Jones, but that's already getting really desperate. Somebody's coming up to get him, or the Raiders are just going to sit and take him. He's going to go number 1 overall, barring an injury in this late in the season, like barring him blowing his knee out in this game or something like that, or blowing his elbow out. He's going to go number 1 overall. It's so crazy that he wins the Heisman and then comes in the playoffs, and it feels like the gas pedal is now pushed through the floor for him. Like the gas was
Yeah.
the foot was already down. Now he's pushing the pedal through the floor. He has been as flawless and as precise as you could be in a college football playoff. And again, they have been playing with massive leads the last 2 weeks. Like, it is what it is there. But everything that you've asked of him, he is just checking every box. So I think they need to see more of this one and this one. But I do think that we're going to see this game more closely to what we saw in Penn State, what we saw against Iowa, what we saw against Ohio State, where he's really going to have to strap his helmet on and lead a drive or two. And
Yeah.
really put the team on his back, as he did at the end of the Penn State game, as he did the end of the Indiana or the Iowa game, as he did in the second half of the Ohio State game, where he led that long touchdown drive, and then he led that drive where they were backed up into inside their own 5-yard line, pushed the ball to midfield, and completely flipped the field. So I think that we're going to have to see Mendoza put the cape on a little bit in this one. So I'm excited because he's got a chance in his hometown to really put the stamp on his draft stock. Is like, yeah, I'm that dude. Even though and again, unless something significant happens, he's gonna go number 1 overall.
Yeah, there's pretty much no stakes for his draft stock. I mean, he could sit out, honestly.
Yeah,
Can you imagine if he opted out?
that'd be amazing. It wouldn't be amazing. It'd be terrible.
Yeah, that would be awful.
Yeah,
But yeah, man, the one distinction, and I'm not saying like that you haven't made this distinction, but just to be clear, like the fact that they have played with so many leads and that they have the RPO heavy offense, that clouds the evaluation, or I would say has clouded the evaluation a little bit, just because it like shrinks the sample size of actually gradable reps. But when you look,
yeah,
right, when you look at the gradable reps and like you look at key drives, like you said, where they're backed up in their own territory, they're trailing by at least, well, only 1 score is the most that they've been behind this year, but he's nails in big moments. So that's not really a concern for me.
doesn't get bigger than this. All right, James. So over under on FanDuel set at 47.5. What are you thinking?
I think it's going to be Indiana 38,
That's a lot of points.
Miami 28.
Wow. Miami's been pretty lights out defensively. That's a lot of points. Okay. 38-28. So you're taking 66 points in this game.
Yeah, and I feel like I always just underestimate how much Indiana is going to score, but I do think, at certain points in the Oregon game, it really felt like they were getting movement up front, and it felt like they were going to be able to run the ball, and it was going to be like a tight game. And then they had a bunch, turnovers that put Indiana with easy field position. The game got out of hand. I think that there's a chance that Mark Fletcher gets going and they're able to, go punch for punch.
Yeah, that's fair. I just tend to think this is going to be a brawl. I think this could be like a 20-10 game or like a 20-23 game on a last second field goal, something like that.
My thing is,
how I feel
Mendoza's
about it
been
a little
so
bit.
sharp. Miami's missing a corner. I could see like a couple early deep Charlie Becker touchdowns. Miami answers were like 17-17 going into halftime or something like that. I do share your opinion though that I feel like this is going to be closer than the spread suggests.
Yeah.
And
Same.
it feels like every time I say that, I am completely wrong. So,
all right, let's give some predictions here. Obviously, I've been the conductor of the Mendoza train for most of the season here, and he's blown my expectations out of the water. So I don't feel like I can predict against Indiana here. I am going to predict Indiana, and we're going to call it 23-13.
okay. Yeah, now that you say it, I do think that a grinded out game is probably more likely. But man, I haven't seen a playoff run like as sharp as Mendoza since probably like Burrow in 2019. Yeah. It's pretty impressive.
All right, Indiana 38-28. Sounds good. All right, so I mean, I've kind of said that I've bet a bit against Miami every step. I guess I didn't last week, but I've picked against Miami against Ohio State, and that kind of backfired on me. And I think I picked against him against Texas A&M too. So I'm probably wrong. I hope not, because it's been a really cool story with Indiana here. But I don't have anything else, James, unless you got something else to talk about here.
That's all I got.
All right, next week we got 4 episodes, and we're off to Texas. So we have a plan for Texas. We're gonna double record one night and just have that Friday episode ready to roll. And we're gonna do a lot of YouTube stuff while we're at the Shrine Bowl. So stay tuned to that. We're gonna have the opportunity to talk to a lot of cool prospects and go and potentially break down some film with them as well. So we're really excited to get going and get down there to Frisco and do that. So until next time, however, this has been another episode of the Daft on Draft podcast. See ya.